Hi, everybody. Al Bernstein here with another one of my quick hits, part of our boxing hangouts. And on this one, we're going to talk about my sojourn to Europe that I had, in which I got to do several championship fights, also a studio show. Yes, it was the Al Bernstein European vacation, and as you can see, it was quite the adventure.
Al, it looks like you made that adventure over there to get some steroids.
Dan, what do you think? Look at me. I'm a god.
You are rocked up, buddy. You look awesome.
Yeah, well, what it looks like. I went to Europe to obtain something, doesn't it?
Yeah, that whole bag that you're carrying there is loaded with anabolic steroids.
Exactly, yes, apparently based on my new body type. And yeah, so I had this grand adventure in Europe, and during the course of this grand adventure, I got to do several championship fights. I got to do, first in Monte Carlo, I got to do the fight between Gennady Golovkin and Martin Murray, which was an extraordinary event on many levels. Got to see Prince Albert there. He didn't consult me on matters of state. But Golovkin more than consulted Martin Murray in a way that was less than desirable to him. You see him here landing a huge right hand. And at the end of the day, Golovkin was able to win this fight against Murray. And several things need to be said about this match. One is that man, Gennady Golovkin, is a monster in the ring. Now, I understand that some people feel like he hasn't fought the level of competition he should have at this point. A couple things about that. One, difficult for him to get people in the ring with him. Number two, the middleweight division is very thin. And as a result of that, even fighting Martin Murray, who some people think of as a good middleweight, well, guess what? Martin Murray might be the second best middleweight in the world, and he fought very well against Golovkin. But Golovkin just was too much for him. If you told me Murray was going to fight Miguel Cotto, who's another champion, tomorrow, I would make Murray a slight favorite in that fight. So, and if you told me Murray was going to fight Peter Quillen or Andy Lee, that would be pick-em fights. So, but I would favor Murray. So, at the end of the day, Golovkin gets the job done. He beats Martin Murray. And Dan, as we bring in Dan Parks, the producer of the Hangouts, Dan, when you're there in person watching Golovkin, it's a fascinating experience because you can, at ringside, you can feel how relentless he is, and you can hear the body punches, two of which knocked Murray down, how they are thudding blows.
It sounded impressive. Watching it live, well, you watched it live, but watching on television, and I was following the Twitter feed of virtually everyone in England who was obviously supporting Murray, and I think it was probably about the 7th or 8th round. You know, everybody started, and he showed so much heart, and he fought his butt off in that fight. And, I don't think he could have done much more.
No, and he had, just before that point where you say people were kind of willing to say, okay, I guess we're not going to win this, he had a round or two where he was pushing Golovkin back, keeping him in the middle of the ring, and you thought, oh, Martin Murray might still have a chance in this fight. But it was an extraordinary effort by Golovkin, and so that was the Monte Carlo portion of my journey. And by the way, I hadn't been to Monte Carlo in 30 years, and it was still a charming, delightful place. And it's funny when you go. I went into the casino, and you go in there, and there's still a dress code. So you have to wear a sport coat, and you have to look like you're well dressed, which I found charming and delightful, and it actually made the whole experience better. So, from Monte Carlo, went to London, where I spent some time and did a show on BT Sports along with my good pal Richie Woodall and Paul Dempsey, and that's always a delight. That was a lot of fun. And then it was on to Belfast, where 9,000 screaming fans filled up the Odyssey Arena for a fight card that was, I thought, cleverly dubbed "The World Is Not Enough." That's like a Bond movie, obviously. And Carl Frampton, who is the local hero in Belfast, took on Chris Avalos, an American fighter who was ranked in the top 5 by virtually every organization, considered one of the top contenders. and Carl Frampton took him on as a mandatory, and it was a brilliant effort by Frampton in this fight. From the get-go, Avalos, who had been very vocal leading up to this fight about how he felt he was going to get the job done, could not. Carl Frampton went to the body, he went to the head. The right hand was an important weapon in this fight. He landed it repeatedly against Avalos, as he has against so many other fighters. And even though there were a round or two where it looked like a real firefight was going to erupt, no. Frampton would stop Avalos with referee Howard Foster jumping in. Yes, that Howard Foster. But in this case, there was not a big controversy over him stopping the fight. And Carl Frampton got a win. He did more than get a win. He showed us again that he is a potential top 10 pound-for-pound fighter in terms of, every weight division, that the mythical top 10 list is within his grasp at some point in life. In that super bantamweight division, of course, it's a loaded division. Avalos was a step below the top 3 or 4 people in the division, and Frampton was able to handle him very easily. Now, when you take another step up, there are people that exist for him. The most important one that exists for him, for Frampton, is Scott Quigg, who has another portion of the super bantamweight championship. And for Quigg, who was on hand at the fight, there is much talk about Scott Quigg facing Frampton. And I thought it showed a lot of character and class for Quigg to be there in this raucous scene. He is from Manchester, the Manchester area in England, and this would be a huge fight in the UK. There are talks going on now to try and make it happen. And one of the men talking, Barry McGuigan, who of course is the manager of Frampton, is a man who was a former champion, had a great career, and is now promoting and managing Frampton. And there's Barry McGuigan as he is jubilant coming in.
He wasn't too happy there, was he, Al?
Yeah, no, just a little bit. Jubilant coming into the ring after his charge. Carl Frampton had defeated Avalos. And, Barry McGuigan, a great fighter in his own right, and he says candidly, Carl Frampton's better than I ever was, and he will be one of the greats in the ring. So McGuigan and his group trying to make these fights. Leo Santa Cruz, another who we saw a moment ago, another fighter who is an American who's a champion in that weight division. Fight between he and Frampton has been talked about on many occasions. That, I think, would be a very, very good fight. In fact, stylistically, that, along with the Quigg fight, is very, very appealing and would be a tremendous action fight. It would be just spectacular. And then there's the elephant in the room in that division, and that's Guillermo Rigondeaux, who until his last fight, where he was down, had issues, and had to come back to win, had been looked unbeatable. Was that last fight an aberration, or was that a sign of where he's at right now? Frampton is absolutely confident that he can beat Rigondeaux. He says, I'm the man to beat him. And it's possible he is, because he's got hand speed, he's got an aggressive style, but he also has defensive skills and enough range, I think, to certainly be an interesting fight against Rigondeaux or anybody. The atmosphere in Belfast, I want to comment on, was extraordinary. I mean, really extraordinary. It was Ricky Hatton-like, the way it used to be in Manchester for Ricky Hatton. I mean, I'll never forget the night I did Ricky Hatton in Costa Zoo, and it was just an extraordinary evening when Hatton upset him. And in all the Ricky Hatton fights, the atmosphere was fantastic. And in Belfast, they put on music, sing for 25 minutes. The crowd sings to songs like American Pie and all these great rock classics. And then Frampton comes in the ring, and it's chaotic, it's crazy. The broadcast we did that night, which was the first time that ITV had television on in over 7 years, so it was on terrestrial TV in Great Britain, much like boxing coming back to over-the-air TV here in the United States. And so the broadcast was important, and I feel like we did a good job in the broadcast of capturing the excitement and the mood in that arena. And in fact, the broadcast on ITV received very positive comments and attracted almost 2 million viewers. So it was that experiment went very well. And one of the important things, I think, Dan, is that for Carl Frampton, he got a chance to be seen by all of the UK. He's a hero in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, but some of the fans in the UK didn't know his personal story, which mirrors Barry McGuigan's. Barry McGuigan, for those that don't know, back when Belfast and Northern Ireland was in chaos, Barry McGuigan and his wife crossed boundaries in terms of Catholicism and being Protestant, and Barry McGuigan was a unifying factor. The same is true with Carl Frampton. It is a mixed marriage that has helped galvanize people even further, even though things are much better in Belfast now. So the parallels of the stories are really remarkable.
I think it's a really amazing time to be involved in combat sports in Ireland. Between what's going on there with Frampton and the things that are going on in the UFC, it's a good time to be a fight fan in Ireland, no doubt.
For sure. And in Northern Ireland, they rally around Frampton and have made him an icon. So in this sojourn to Europe, a few personal comments about the whole process for me. Number one, the fans in the UK are extraordinary. I mean, it sounds like I'm pandering to them, but I'm not. I'm telling the truth.
They're great.
They are extraordinary sports fans and extraordinary boxing fans. And they couldn't have made me feel more welcome. I've been there many times doing boxing before, but this trip, in which I got to be in several different places, was really special. And for those around the world and the folks that watch this in America, you need to know that it's a very special place. And if there's ever an opportunity for any of you to see a big fight in somewhere in the UK, you need to do it, because it's really pretty extraordinary. So my European vacation went well, better than Chevy Chase's did, Dan. And clearly I have, and on top of that, I reworked my body completely, so I'm now ready to compete, in fact, in one of those UFC events you talked about.
That's it. You need to cycle off, though, before the next one, because you look like you're showing off a little too heavy there.
I think you may have a point. Yes. The cycling off is a key factor when it comes to those things. And hopefully Europe will still be standing after my visit. So a lot of fun in Europe, where I saw some fantastic boxing, and I hope to go back very soon.